I'm Shatay.
And I'm Scott, and we're the Hazes.
Welcome to season 2 of the Love Haze, where we talk about, rethinking the way you love your life. But this season, we really want to focus on purpose work, pulling up to your purpose, what that means and what it looks like, and folks who are actively doing it now.
Absolutely. And I think with the Love Haze podcast, really what we understand is that there will always be a haze.
Yep.
But we can choose to show up whole and healed and ready to get to our purpose anyway, and to have purposeful action behind our work.
Today, we're so excited to have Jessica Green in the house, who is an attorney and District 1 Councilwoman in Louisville, Kentucky. Her family, they are also the founders, owners, operators of the Greenhouse Family Resource Center, where I was reading up on it. Some incredible therapy, educational sessions, all type of resources for the families in her community. She is also a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. My line sister, the 21.
Happy belated Founders Day, sis. Yes.
Yes, my back in the house. And we are just so delighted to have you, Jess. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you guys for the invitation, and I'm happy to be here. Happy New Year, and I love you.
Love you too, sis. So this is one of my favorite questions to ask folks, because I'm always interested to hear what people do, but not only what they do, but how it really is in alignment with who they are as a being. Mm-hmm. So tell us about your work, what it is you do, and like how did you come about to do that work?
Yeah, so the work that I do and the work that really, that I, again, still searching, and I feel like I've almost basically found what my purpose is. It really arose for real out of tragedy. And so us using tragedy in our life really to turn it into triumph. And so my mom unexpectedly passed away in January of 2013. She had been an elected official in Louisville for many years, was very beloved, and passed away. I never thought that I would ever go into politics. So dial back really the month prior to that, in December 2012, I was a prosecutor, was exclusively prosecuting domestic violence cases and sex abuse cases, was prepared to be a career prosecutor, never thought that I would do anything different. And then a new administration came in. My boss was retiring, and a new guy came in. I was fired. And so I was unexpectedly found like, what the hell am I going to do with my life? Kind of went into like a depression. This is December 2012. 2 weeks later, my mom was dead. And so I had lost my job, the only career that I thought that I would want to do. And I had unexpectedly lost like my friend. My mother was my lifeline. And anybody who knew me, my mother basically did everything for me. I didn't have to make any decisions. Basic stuff like picking paint color out in my house, like what kind of car I would drive. Like I just kind of was an obedient child my whole life. And so I found myself the middle of 2013, just kind of like, what am I like supposed to do? I don't know what I'm supposed to be, where I'm supposed to go. And so I really spent that first 6 months of 2013 just kind of wallowing kind of in depression and like, what am I supposed to do with my life? What am I supposed to, like, how am I supposed to move? I never thought that I would go into private practice. I never thought that I would be an elected official. I'm the kind of person, at least in the past, I like continuity. I like to know what kind of money is coming in so I can plan as far as what was coming out. And I found myself right there at the top of 2013 where my entire world had just been completely upended. And I remember my dad saying to me at the time, you can either do something or you can go under. And so I just, at that minute, it was like, I got to find something to do, because if not, I will lose myself in just the depressive mood that I was in. And so people began to talk to me about, running for the seat that my mother had previously held. And again, at this time, in that gap period, somebody else had been appointed to that seat, and the person was a beloved incumbent. When I began the discussion of talking to people, because I ended up filing to run for office at the top of January of 2014. There were people who were popping out of the woodworks who were saying, Jessica, we think you have a bright future ahead of yourself, but there's nobody who has ever beat an incumbent on Metro Council in Louisville except your mother, because my mother had beat an incumbent. People don't win against incumbents. They just don't. You don't want to embarrass yourself, because if you have a future ahead of yourself, you don't want to be a loser, and you're going to lose. People love this person who has been put in this spot, who has taken over for your mother. And so just bide your time. I didn't have really any support. No unions would support me. I didn't get one endorsement from anybody because nobody thought I had a chance. And so I remember I didn't really know at the time if I had a chance. I just knew that I needed to do something. I needed to find something to try to help me to feel whole. And I just began to feverishly campaign. I've got a picture of me campaigning and knocking on somebody's doors. I had those like false eyelashes. There was snow in the middle of my eyelashes. I was literally like out knocking on doors like a fool in the snow and the rain. And who the hell knew? I won. And so it was like, okay, I've won. Now let me get to work. And so that is how I kind of got into politics. And so finding my voice in the midst of all of that, it took, now I'm in my, which is crazy to say, 6 years. So I'm in my top of my third year of my second term. And so, we ran for re-election. We got 88% of the vote, which is also is unheard of, really in a re-election kind of campaign. And so I've been able to surround myself with good people who are loyal. And I remember my mother told me a long time ago, find something that you love and call it work. And so that's part of how I have tried to singularly focus on the things that are important to me. And so, I opened up a law practice in the midst of all this. I never thought that I would be an entrepreneur because, again, I just like to have a stable paycheck. And in business, who knows? And so I tell everybody that even that first year out, I was amazed that people were paying me and calling me to help them with with problems. That first year out, I made more than I'd ever made as a prosecutor. And God has continued to enlarge our territory, and we've just been blessed. And so 2 years ago, I opened up the Greenhouse Family Resource Center, kind of as an offshoot of my law practice. And so I see in the family court system what the needs are. Also, I think Shatay, as you know, I'm an adoptive parent. So my husband and I, we've just given birth to a baby. He's 4 months old. But a long time ago, before I met my husband, back when I was a prosecutor, I was seeing so many kids aging out of foster care. And I remember telling my mom, I don't know what to do. I want to help. And so I became a foster parent about 13, 14 years ago, and adopted kids. And so we opened up the Greenhouse Family Resources, and really as a tribute to my parents, who I grew up with 11 adopted siblings. I'm one of 13. And then I came along and adopted 3 kids. And so my oldest 2 kids have struggled with severe mental health issues. And so reactive attachment disorder, I was the 10th foster home they had been in by the time they were placed with me. And so struggling with attachment issues and mental health issues. And I remember at one point 3 years ago, they were having so many mental health issues and appointments. I was having to go to probably 5 different places each week. And so I started thinking, what if there could be one place that families in crisis can go to where they can get all of the resources that they need, as opposed to people who are already stressed and depressed and down in the trenches, having to go here for your therapy, go here to get your kids' meds, go here to go to group classes. It's overwhelming. And so we opened it up 2 years ago, and we've really been blessed. And so we offer individual therapy. We offer group therapy. We do supervised visitations, which is primarily for dads who have EPOs, and the court says you have to have a supervisor. You can't use your anybody in your family. Well, where are they supposed to go to be able to see their kids? And so we've opened that up. We're doing drug and alcohol treatment. We're expanding actively now. And so, we've been blessed. And even in the midst of a pandemic, I can say my family, my businesses, we have thrived. And I think that is partly really due to the fact of what my mother said to me years ago, which is find something that you love and call it work. and the money will come. And so that is what I have tried to, like, anytime that, people have asked me about, additional business ventures or whatever, if I don't love it, I can't be a part of it. I can't invest in it. But as we continue to expand, continuing to find things that I love, continue to find things that bring me joy and that I think that can really impact the world. And so that's where I'm living, the way I'm living my life right now. If it's not something that brings me joy, I just hitting on 40, boo. It three things. If it's not going to bring me joy, peace, or happiness, it's not something that I really want to have my life, my brand, my money to be a part of it. And so that's kind of how I'm living my life at this point.
Listen, can we just I want to run around the couch real quick for a Holy Ghost moment. Find something that you love and call it work. Should be the mantra of everybody's life.
And I tell you, my mom told me that years ago, and I didn't know, when she said that to me, what it really meant, because she said that to me, my entire life, and I didn't get it. And as I have searched and as I have grown, and the businesses and the things and the way that I have been able to thrive in certain aspects, and where the overflow has come from, is because I have the joy and I have a passion for it. And so that would be my word to anybody out there, is that the money will come if it's something that you love. And so if you focus on your passion, you're going to put the energy, you're going to put the footwork, you're going to put the feet to the ground on the stuff that really is important to you. And because of that, I really feel like that you can be lucrative if something that you have a passion for.
Oh my gosh, that's everything. I want to ask you a quick follow-up question before you move to the next one. You said you had never seen yourself going into politics, but weren't you class president in college? And so why did that not seem like it was in alignment with who you are?
So, as from the time I was little, starting in kindergarten, I was always class representative, giving the speech, at fifth grade graduation, and then senior class president in high school, freshman class president at college, and senior class president in college. I think that I probably didn't see myself going into politics because I never really could envision myself doing that. And my mom had been in politics for so long. I had such kind of a bad taste in my mouth about certain things. And I would think, I can't be involved with these crazy ass people. This is not going to be what I do with my life. I need to be able to just find something, again, where I can get a steady paycheck. I can go to work. I can come home. I can know, what's coming in is coming out. I don't have to deal with crazy people. And so I just never thought that I would do it. I mean, it was just kind of my mom's thing, and I was happy to support her. And again, she was beloved, and really 8 years after her death is still beloved by the community that she served. People love them some Judy Green. And so it always still tickles me pink. And, the biggest compliment that anybody can ever give to me is, you remind me of your mom. And so people say that and it just makes my heart swell with pride. But, that was just kind of my mother's thing. I felt like that my thing was to be a prosecutor. I loved it. I love being a prosecutor, which is so interesting, especially as a Black woman, who has lived in the urban core my entire life. But I thought that was my calling. It wasn't. It was something that was just kind of a stopgap, a placeholder for me. And again, we don't know really what the placeholders are in our life until we really move to our purpose. And so there can be times when we think, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be. But no, God is just putting you there. This is the placeholder to get you ready for that space. And so I had a lot of resentment for the new guy, the elected official who came in and let me go and fired me. But honey, when I see him now, I tell him, you did the best thing that you could have ever done for me. You made a decision for me that I would have never had the chutzpah or the balls to make for myself. And now when he skimpers and scrapes in front of me about trying to, make sure his budget is what it needs to be because I'm responsible for setting the budget for his office, honey, full circle. It's just, again, it is all, it's full circle. And so again, it just stopgap, and just when stuff changes, just be obedient. It's just, that has been the lesson that I have learned, and go where God wants you to go, even if it's something that you feel uncomfortable about, But God knows best, even when we in our own stubbornness feel like that we know what's going to be best for. We don't know what's best for us. God knows what's best for us. And so just be obedient to the path.
Amen. You
Oh,
know,
word.
I think that's so important too, because things happen to us in our lives, and it is usually ultimately ushering us into our
Yep.
purpose,
Yep.
right? Ushering us into those things that we should be doing. And sometimes we get stuck
Yeah.
in that moment of loss or in that moment of grief and whatever has happened to us. And those things a lot of times are situational. And we have to give ourselves permission to do the healing work that we need to do so that we can move forward and get to our purpose. And so I guess the next question really has a lot to do. You explained a lot about like what led you to this work. My question now, especially with what the love haze is about, what is the haze for you in your current work? Like, what is the difficulty that you face in trying to get towards like what you're trying to accomplish with your purpose? What kind of challenges do you face day to day?
Yeah, so for me, I think the biggest challenge that I find is balance. The idea of sometimes not being able to say no and to be able to self-preserve, because my love language is acts of service, and so the way that I express my love or that I show people that I care is by showing up, and it's by doing things. And really, particularly during this pandemic period, I was pregnant for the most part of it, had a very high risk pregnancy, have a newborn. And in Louisville, there was so much. We were really at the epicenter of what was going on in the new civil rights era
Mhm.
around the country with Breonna Taylor. And so the fact that I had to, at times when people were asking me to show up places when I physically couldn't, or times that I was on bed rest, or times when it just wasn't healthy for me to be out in crowds, it still is
Mhm.
difficult for me to be able to say no. And so that is what I find the biggest challenge for me in my life, is understanding and knowing that if I'm no good, then the people, the services, and everything around me, the way I express my love, the way that I help, I can't do that unless I have learned, and it's still a daily process,
Yeah.
learning to preserve at least a portion of myself for me. And so because of that, there are certain things that my family knows is just non-negotiable for me. Every single day, every day, I'm gonna have a 2-hour bubble bath at night, honey. Like literally, it's at least an hour. And most of the days it's 2 hours. I shut the door. If those kids or that husband or that dog comes to that door, I'm gonna be fussing and cussing, because that's just the time. I mean,
Mhm.
whenever and however that time is, learn to just preserve and have a little piece of yourself that you just have for yourself. And
Yeah.
so for me, I don't get much time to myself. But honey, that bubble bath time with that water piping up and me sweating in the tub, that's it. That's it for me.
Mhm.
And so learning to do that is I think important. I think also learning to find your voice in where you are. And so, of course, I was elected 6 years ago, and really as a baby legislator, learning to kind of find what your voice is and what your purpose is, particularly as an elected official, is something that I have found to be really a unique kind of thing. And so, at this point in my career, the only things that I'm interested in are issues related to justice, equity, and helping people. And so the legislation that I draft, the work that I do, if it is not surrounding justice, equity, and help, it's not something that I'm really interested in. And so
Yeah.
I think, again, helping excuse me.
That's all right. Let them preach, honey. Let 'em preach.
So I think as part of that, again, finding your voice and what is important to you really helps, even in the times where you are exhausted. It helps you to be able to kind of keep pushing. People were laughing at me because 3 days after I gave birth, I was back at work. I was working. I was doing interviews. I was with Don Lennon, Yolanda Lemon. 3 days, literally after I gave birth, literally the day after I got home from the hospital. And people were saying, Jessica, are you crazy? You need to be sitting down. But if it's something that is a passion for yours,
Yeah.
even in the midst of wearing a postpartum diaper, honey, you're going to show up and you're going to be able to at least show up a little bit because it's something that you feel passionate about. And so for me, if I'm willing to die for it, I'm going to always show up. And so for me, again, finding the balance between what it is that's your purpose and and having to maintain a portion of yourself is what I find to be very interesting.
That is. First of all, can we talk about how real you just kept it with this postpartum?
Listen, nobody told me about that part of it. I was like, this is a mess, honey. Nobody talked to me about that part. Everybody's like, oh, it's wonderful. It's amazing. Okay. All right.
Right.
It is. Maybe it's cute, honey, but it's a mess. It's a mess. Don't get it twisted.
I appreciate how real you are so much. I don't remember what the thread was, but when you put in our group thread on the line about bourbon or people not being able to drink or something like that,
listen. I have to listen. As I've learned to live my life, I'm just like, transparency is free, and it can help me, and it can help somebody else. So I always tell people, look, honey, I packed a little bottle of Woodford bourbon, honey, in my hospital bag just because. It was a long 10 months. It was a long time. So I was ready. So yeah, that's that.
I'm here for it. I am so here for it. I love what you said about taking care of yourself and the time for yourself, the 2 hours for yourself. I'm even thinking out here, like, how do you find 2 hours every day for yourself? I don't even have any kids yet. And I'm like, well, where does the time come
And it's just, and it could be either super early in the morning. It could be late at night. But they know that is a non-negotiable for me. They know I'm gonna take at least one bubble bath. I try to get 2 a day, honey, just to maintain my sanity. But they know, do not disturb me. Do not knock on that door. Don't ask me about no school assignment. Don't ask me about the baby took a dump. Figure it out, honey. Like, listen. The thing is this: if I wasn't here and if I couldn't maintain my sanity, if I was dead and gone from exhaustion, y'all would have to figure it out on your own. So you got to let me have this time for myself where I can just luxuriate and relax. And so that is a non-negotiable for me. They know that. Don't even think about bothering me.
I'm gonna have to do that too. Figure out how to just figure out what that looks like.
Yes.
So then, in terms of like how you've made it to the work that you do, which is just really beautiful, and all of the things that have opened up for you since then. You kind of touched on it, I think, a little bit, but how overall, when you think about it, has this like impacted your life? Like what impact has it had on you?
So I always, I am less concerned about, the impact that I will have on my own life. What I'm mostly concerned is about the impact that the work that I do has on other people. And so when I have drafted legislation like Breonna's law, or when I have drafted a police de-escalation legislation, or when I have gone to bat in the courtroom for a client, it again makes me happy to know that really for generations to come, that somebody else's life is going to be affected. And particularly in the area of legislation, which is law, this is finite. These are the rules. So I believe that the biggest thing that a legislator can do really is to find and draft legislation that will live far beyond the time that they are in office. And so for me, I'm so proud of legislation that I feel like that I have drafted that has been pivotal. We have drafted legislation that has allowed individuals, dirty cops, to be prosecuted and charged after people have spent time in prison for murder that they did not commit, where other people would not touch it. That's one of the things I'm most proud of. I'm proud of the fact of the work that we've done with the LGBTQ community, where we have put them at the table in terms of certain business enterprises, drafted a fair housing legislation that takes off the table people's criminal convictions when they are seeking housing. That's the kind of thing really that brings me joy. And so for me, everybody is born and everybody dies. And so at some point my time is going to be up here, but I am really, I think about all the time, and I hope that what I have done, at least a piece of it, if it can affect or if it can help anybody, then I would say my living is not in vain. And so that's how I get my joy, which is just trying to think about how I can help other people. And so that's why I do what I do. And so it is it's really a privilege, and it's an honor. And so, it makes me very happy.
Absolutely.
That's beautiful.
It
Thank you.
is. It is.
Mm.
And so I guess along those lines, the question that we have now is, do you believe that everyone has purpose? And if
Absolutely.
so, how do we know? How do we get
Yeah.
to what our
Yeah,
purpose
I 100% believe that everybody has a purpose. Everybody was put here for a reason. And so I go back to the words that I began hearing from my mother when I was 3 and 4 years old and I didn't understand. Find what brings you joy. And I
Yeah.
think that if it's helping people, then let that be what it is. And so everybody does different things. I can't do what you guys do. You can't do what I do. And so learning to not compare your
Mhm.
life or your purpose or what your gifts are to other people. And so if you've got the gifts of helps and you can be a CNA and you can help senior citizens,
Mhm.
then that's a purpose. I mean, and so really trying to narrow it down and live a purpose-driven life. I love the idea of living a purpose-driven life, and I think that again, if it is something that brings you joy, then it can be your profession, it can be your side hustle, it can just be the way that you help your community. But everybody has something that you can offer to the world. Everybody has something that they can change the world with in their own individual way. And so I think that as I meet people and as I talk to people, whatever your life's passion is, and if you don't know, it's never too late. There are people that I know, friends of mine, who are my age, and they talk to me all the time about, well, I still don't feel like I found a purpose. That's fine. You don't have to have found your purpose at this point, but just keep on living long enough, and you'll get there. And so that's just the way I feel.
I think there are a lot of people that actually feel that way. And so I think for some people, and this is just my guess, they think that purpose means you got to be hella passionate about something. You have to have some major talent. You have to, that is just like some huge road sign that's saying do this thing. And if they don't have a burning desire to do it, then that must not be purpose. But I appreciate what your mom said about, find the thing that you love. There is still something that people love. Taking naps. I found a friend of mine sent a nap ministry on IG recently, and I was like, these are my people. Like, who would have thought that starting a nap ministry is like a thing? Or things out of your pain points, and they're just small curiosities that you're like, I wish this were better. And then all of a sudden that becomes your work. So, I mean, like, what are your thoughts maybe for folks who don't have like this huge, like you even still have a desire, even though you didn't think you would end up in politics, you still knew you wanted to go into law, right? Like, so what about folks who are kind of just present? They're kind of just doing, they've chosen something that's a job for them. What are some things they can maybe lean into, do you think, that will kind of clue them into like some purpose?
So the thing is this, I think sometimes people get the impression that, unless you have there's lights and camera and action on you and people are feeling like, oh, you're doing something super amazing, then that's not a purpose. If it is something, again, I got a friend of mine, she literally loves doing eyelashes. I mean, and that is what she has found that brings her joy. I mean, I don't have the patience and don't have the hand dexterity to be able to do that kind of thing. But she does. And she absolutely loves it. And so the thing is that it doesn't have to be something that, again, is lights, camera, action on you, that the world finds it is super sexy. But again, if it is something as simple as, you know what, I really like dogs. Maybe I can go a couple of days a week or once a month to go out and walk dogs at an animal shelter. That is changing the world for those individual dogs that may not have the opportunity to get out of a kennel and who may never ever get adopted. Somebody else may say, oh yeah, you know what, I really love cooking. It doesn't mean you have to become a professional chef, but if you show even your love through cooking for your own individual family, That's
Yeah.
perfectly acceptable too. But everybody can kind of do something. And I think that it's important to find the something that you like, just so again you can have some joy in your life. Because listen, guys, life is hard, and we realize it is even harder in the midst of, since 2020, with the pandemic, with us having the new civil rights era. And so we deserve to have a little piece of joy in the midst of it. You know what? If you love bourbon, then guess what? Start a bourbon tasting club and live it up and invite me to it, honey. Ping me in, pull me in. And so, I mean,
Right.
exactly. I mean, whatever it is, everybody enjoys something. And
Yeah.
so finding something that you enjoy and clinging to it, and finding a way that it can be a lifeline for yourself and an outlet for yourself, that's great. That's sufficient. And that is a purpose-driven life in and of itself.
Come on, purpose driven.
One of the things that I think helped me along with getting to my purpose, and what I try to communicate to other people, is like understanding this drive to be able to find your purpose, and be able to affect change on the level that you're on, right?
Yeah.
So we all have the ability to like impact change, like in our neighborhoods, in our community. So we have micro level change, we have meso level change, and we have macro level change.
Okay.
All those different levels. So you can impact change with your purpose and with the things that you love on whatever level that you're on.
Yeah.
Right.
That's right.
If it is dog walking, if
That's
it
right.
is,
And
impacting
Scott, don't think I haven't seen your case on Shatay's page, honey. If you can make me happy by sending me a case, that's impacting somebody's life. I'm serious. Like, I mean, it is what it is. And so if there's something that you can make people smile with, like cupcakes or cakes, that's what it is. Everybody has something that they can do. And so I love it. And so that's deep. I do. I love it.
And so for me, even with baking, it impacts change on the level of there's so many people that can't believe that there is this 300-pound black man,
Yep,
who's a Q, who bakes cakes.
yep.
Like, and so my nephews
How'd
kind
you
of
get into? I'm sorry, I know y'all doing the interview, but let me ask you a question. Put you on the spot. How'd you get into that, by the way? Anyway.
my mother and my grandmother, and their recipes growing up, and with the line of work that I've chosen, and being an LCSW, and being a therapist, you can give people like everything that they need in order to be successful. And with my folks, they'll be like, Mr. Hey, let me sprinkle a little bit of crack on it and see if it'll still work. But that's just not what it is. So when I have my recipes, if I follow my recipes, I follow the instructions, then it's gonna come out perfect every time.
Right.
If I have my temperature right, I use my flour that I'm supposed to use, and I do everything in the right denominations, then it'll always come out the way that it's supposed to. And so that's my therapy for myself.
That's right.
Like, I give people like great instructions every day, and they choose to add other things in, and it doesn't work out. But with baking, if I follow the instructions and I do what I'm supposed to do, it's gonna come out right. So that's my therapy. So this one that I do, it'll come out the right way as long as I'm supposed to be doing.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
That's awesome. Because I can cook, but I can't bake. My nerves are too bad. I can't follow directions. Like, I'm not, my ADHD gets the best of me. I cannot focus to the point of like following a recipe. And that's why I can't bake it out. Now I can cook when I can just add, a little bit more Larry's and, add this to the pot.
Lean on
I have to follow a recipe. Honey, that's too stressful for me. I can't do it. So God bless you, brother. I cannot do it at all.
Yeah. So we want to know then, what's your biggest piece of advice that you have for other folks?
In addition to what your mama done already, like, that's just helped me.
Yeah. I think that my biggest piece of advice would just be, give to others, but also maintain a piece of yourself for yourself. And so I think that particularly as women, Black women, professionals, if you are a mother, there's this idea that, depleting yourself is kind of our penance to society. We grew up with our grandmothers who were, I used to wonder, how can my grandmother have raised 9 kids and have all these doggone grandkids over here and be exhausted, wouldn't mind being up cooking every single day.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily have to be the model for us as 21st century people, Black people, Black women in particular. And so learning again that it is okay to keep and to preserve a piece of yourself
Mm.
for yourself alone. And again, I used to feel guilty about it. I used to feel guilty about saying no. I used to feel guilty about sometimes just leaving the house and driving around because I just, I
Mhm.
couldn't get any peace anywhere else. And so, this idea, and people have to learn, particularly of us, those of us who are givers in life, that we have to, it is our obligation not only to ourselves, but to our community, those that we serve, that we take care of ourselves. And so, what I'm a strong proponent of therapists, of sitting
Mhm.
down and talking to an unbiased party that you can just let it all out, because your mama might not understand, your husband may not understand everything that you're going to, and if that is your time for yourself, and if that helps you to be able to release and to be able to get back in the game, that's something that I think that we should do. And so promoting self for self is just, I'm not talking about being selfish, but I'm talking about maintaining sanity, maintaining a portion of yourself that is exclusively, unabashedly, and unequivocally just for yourself. That is okay. And that is what helps us to keep churning along. And you don't ever have to apologize for that. And so that's my advice.
Amen.
Awesome.
That is
My advice.
wonderful advice. I would say a couple more questions. We want to ask about music, but before that, what can we do to help your work, whether that's with the greenhouse or your work, in law and politics? Like, what could we, either the hazes or the community, do to support the work that you do?
So I think that particularly on the political portion, I saw people in the electorate rise up in 2020 in ways that I had never seen before. And
Mm.
so when we talk about finding our voice, the voting block, we found people found their voice. And
Mhm.
so when it was time for us to cast votes on things like Rihanna's law and other pieces of pivotal legislation we passed in Louisville in 2020, we were getting flooded. I mean, to the point where the phone systems had collapsed.
Wow.
Like at City Hall in Louisville, the phones were locked up. It was a beautiful thing. And we were getting calls from all over the country. And so I encourage people, uh, voters, you don't know the power that you have until you flex it. And so the voters flex their voice in 2020. It's the reason that I think that we'll have a new president, because I never thought that Donald Trump was going to be able to be beaten. But people mobilized themselves and they found their voices. And so in terms of when you say how can you help on the political spectrum, when there are those of us who are, and I have been for many years probably um, the most progressive voice on Louisville Council. And
Mhm.
so, how can you help when there are those pivotal votes that are coming up? You know, whether it's local people or whether it's people from around the country,
Yeah.
showing up, making calls to colleagues, sending emails, making posts on Facebook. That's the kind of thing that will and can help us. In terms of how you can support the work at the greenhouse, we've been very, very blessed. And I have had so many Spelman sisters that have reached out. I think of one, Candace Barito, who's one of our classmates. She and her daughter sent art crafts things to our kids who do our visitations. She mailed those to us from upstate New York to Kentucky. And so we were so grateful for that, because we're doing what we can. And so anything that anybody wants to help with, we would be happy to, because we serve an underserved population. I mean,
Yeah.
our clients are not people who are people of means. And so anything that anybody can do to help, we would love to be able to partner or do things with other nonprofits. And so we're just happy to be here, and we are so appreciative.
Yeah, consider it done. Are there any other
Absolutely.
needs aside? I really love the art supplies idea.
She did. I mean, it was so generous. I mean, we had people that were dropping off teddy bear to give out at Christmas time. And so we do a lot of work with kids who are in the state's custody in foster care. And so that's the kind of thing that it's always they love it. families, our families that come to us, again, these are not families of means, and so things that we can do to help the families and stuff that is just wonderful. And so we, like I said, we've been very blessed, and so again, we're continuing to do what we do, and we're continuing to do our part, and everybody else just do their part. Hopefully we can make the world a better place one day at a time.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Ask about music.
Yeah. Shatay and I are music lovers. We believe that everything in our life has a theme song.
Yep.
So we want to ask you, what is your music for this moment? What does this work for you feel like? What's your theme song, if will?
Theme song.
Well, listen, I'm a trap music fan.
Come on, trap music.
I'm a trap music fan, and so I always just kind of, I feel like if you stay ready, it is what it is. So for me, we ready.
Hey.
We ready.
True.
We ready. So for me, listen, I just try to stay ready, and I try to stay obedient. So for me, my theme is just, that line right there is the way I try to live my life. So that's just what it is.
Yes, y'all. I love you forever.
And when I visit, when the world opens back up, Scott, don't play. I will knock on your door and expect a cupcake. So I'm throwing that out there into the atmosphere. Shatay, listen, if the homecoming is ready, listen, I am praying and hoping to God, honey, because I need a little bit of relief. So if the world is open back up, I'm going to be in Atlanta for homecoming this year. And so, yeah, I'll be there. I'll be there. And I want a cupcake. I'm just letting you know that right
now. Listen, Jessica, we appreciate you so much for joining us today on the Love Haze. It's been an amazing conversation.
Yeah.
Really appreciate you just blessing us with your knowledge and with some insight into your purpose. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate you.
That's it, and that's all for this episode, y'all. We are the Hazes, and until next time, we encourage you to pull up to your purpose.
Pull up.
Peace, y'all.
Why'd you take so long to come to me? Oh, baby.